like, we like you. You're going to be great. Let's do this. And then 3 months later, you're like, shit, I made a terrible hire.
We need to break up.
We need to break up. And then it takes 3 months to break up, and it's longer than it should because it's hard to break up with people.
Are you ready to supercharge your hiring process? Courtney and I sit down with the owner of Discovered, Fletcher, Wimbush, and we're going to be talking about the hiring process that's going to supercharge your talent, your agency, and he's also going to break down Courtney and I's personalities, because yes, we did take the time. We took personality tests, and he breaks us down on this episode and gives great tips along the way of what to look for and what not to look for when hiring a sales professional and a service professional. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your host, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a very special guest with us today, Fletcher Wimbush. Fletcher, what's going on, my man?
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, yeah, we are pumped. So you run a company called Discovered, where you are a talent acquisition platform that automates sourcing, and I am super pumped because one of the things that we are always getting asked by our audience is, hey, I'm having a hard time finding good people. I'm having a hard time finding people in general. And so when you reached out, you're like, hey, Michael, I've got something I want to talk to you about. And you're like, take these tests, see what you think. And I'm like, let's do it, Fletcher. All right. Like, I'm excited to see what you found out about us, more about your company, what you're finding in the recruiting and talent arena.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you guys speak typically to B2C or consumer lines insurance brokers, right? And yeah, it's brutally difficult to recruit and hire and let alone retain people. And so, we've spent some time playing in that space and understand the challenges y'all run into, but it's vitally important to whether or not you can grow your firm and you can start working on your business instead of working in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the key to success. Go from operator to owner, baby.
Yeah. So Fletcher, before we get into this, because I do want to pull apart our results, I always love to see my test scores. Like, would you hire me? Where would you put me? So the process that you sent us, I'm curious if you were to bring somebody on or if you were to guide somebody, what would you tell them the process? How many people or percentage of people do you think that initial step of saying, hey, we're going to take a personality test, how many people do you think that weeds out right off the bat?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different types of personality assessments. So some are going to be more aggressive and more judgmental than others. I had you guys take two. I had you take one that's very judgmental. And so this is going to be a fun conversation, maybe for some of us, and it might not be a great conversation, a hard conversation for me to navigate, to be honest. But so this is going to be really, really fun in that sense. But and then I had you guys take kind of a more basic DISC assessment, and depending, that's a lot more subjective, frankly, right? Like the tool like that is more, great to share. Maybe you guys got your results on that. I don't know if you guys received your results in return on that particular section. So it's a lot less judgmental. It's more, hey, I mean, this is how what you said about yourself when you answer the questions, and you're going to get a report back that should be fairly friendly and say, hey, these are things that where you naturally are inclined, and maybe some areas for improvement you might want to self-reflect on, and you shouldn't have felt like too defensive about your scores, right? When you got those back, yeah, that kind of feels like me, and I learned something, or maybe I didn't ever thought of that, or something like that, right? So that tool again is often more used for development, but also a lot of people are using tools similar to that in the hiring process. And again, they're having to sort of interpret the results and make a decision, and there's less of a right or wrong answer necessarily in a situation like that. So it all varies. But on the advanced assessments you guys took, I mean, you would probably disqualify 90-80% of your candidates, right? So
wow.
It might,
okay, so
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so you're going to disqualify 80 to 90%. I'd be interested in how many candidates do you find, if you know this, that don't even complete the entire, they don't even complete the test. They just give up before it's even done.
Again, it's a wide variety, but depending on how engaging you are with your messaging up front. So a lot of times we're sending videos to candidates. So candidate applies, hey, thank you, welcome. Hey, here's a video. I want to just share with you what you should expect, and thank you for applying. And hey, here are the steps in the process that you're going to go through, and we're very eager to see you do that. So you can increase those odds there. On a long assessment like this, without initial engagement with the candidate, you may have fairly low numbers. Now, if you've engaged with the candidate, so say you flip this on the head, right? So instead of, hey, apply, hey, complete an hour-long assessment or even a 10-minute assessment, and you actually have an interaction with that candidate, an initial phone screen, then after initial phone screen, you probably have an 80 to 100% chance that they're going to take the assessments. So the drop-off will be very, very small. Now, you will have some drop-off, and usually that's a good drop-off. It's like you met with the candidate, they met with you, and they just kind of decided this is like not for them, right? Like they're not interested after meeting with you, and probably for good reason. Like they're not an extrovert. They shouldn't be in sales. They don't really want to do sales. They don't even really know why they applied for the job to begin with, but for some reason they took the interview, right? So, or they find out about the pay or how you get paid, and they're like, nah, it's kind of, I'm not a fit. Like they self-select out, which is good. We want people to self-select out, right? If it's going to be bad. So you're going to have some variety there. We were talking about integrity first. That's a lot of frontline workers that we do business with. They at the point of application, they're like 80+% completing an assessment with zero human interaction. So again, you can be across the board in terms of, so it's a sales and marketing thing. You want to experiment. Hey, how many candidates can I get through with the least amount of effort? And where do I place these in my process? So it's going to vary ultimately.
I love that you said, where do I place these in this process? So I love a hurdle before hiring. I love to really set up like those initial tests that kind of weed out. So I don't have to invest time in somebody that I know is not interested in the position. So when you think about the process, and the assessments that you gave us, is this happening on the front end? Is this happening right before we send out an offer? Where have you seen these assessments work best in the hiring process?
Well, if I want to hire producers, let's just put that out, because I'm assuming that's where probably people have the biggest pain. Now, your support staff, getting those wrong is super painful, but I'll tell you, that's actually a much easier problem to solve. Now, so look, producers or salespeople or anybody who's going to be a revenue generator in a B2C insurance environment, typically what I want to do is I want to receive a resume. I'm going to screen those resumes. I'm going to say, hey, this person kind of looks interesting, or they have past experience, or I see that they used to do solar sales, and I could see the parallel. I might want to talk to them and see if they can transfer into my world, right? So then I want to invite them to like a 15 to 30 minute phone screen, or now it's all video, right? But I still call it a phone screen, right? So we do a little video interview, we meet, and I ask you some questions, and ideally those are sort of a structured set of questions that are really focused on that person's past performance, transferable skill sets, and references. I always want to speak to people's past bosses, period. And I want to get to that as early in the conversation as possible. You're going to find out more. If I say, Michael, Courtney, who was your past boss, and will they talk to me about the time you two spent working together? That tells me a lot. So just the answer to that question alone almost tells me everything I need to know about the person. And if I can ask that in the first 5 to 7 minutes of meeting them on a video interview, I'm already starting to get some clues that this person might be a problem, or they've probably have done some good things. Because if it's an emphatic yes, my old boss, Joe, Jane, would be happy to speak with you, and they'd say great things about me, thumbs up, or they start hesitating, ducking, dodging, giving excuses. HR has a policy against it. They don't work there anymore. Those are all irrelevant excuses, by the way. Then I already know I'm something's fishy here. Like, why wasn't that
red flag?
Yeah, red flag, right? Yeah. And we don't have enough time to dig into that particular technique, but that is a whole technique. And you can check that out, more on our website, or you can ask me for a little ebook on that. Happy to share. So I want to do that, and then I want to have an opportunity to engage the candidate too, especially in this environment, there's to some degree, you have to help them understand what their career path is. Why is this a great opportunity? Because often doesn't start as a great opportunity. I mean, it's heavily commission only, low base pay, or, low base or zero base pay, and you're going to have to go out and build a book of business. But I mean, as you guys know, you've been in this business a long time. If you are a long-term successful producer, the long-term benefits of this career path are enormous. Lots of freedom, lots of financial freedom, lots of great relationships with clients, but it takes time, right?
Oh yeah. Insurance is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a get-rich for sure, but it is not a get-rich-quick.
Yeah. Well, it's only get rich if you stick with it.
That's right.
Because if you go 3 years in and you give up, then you just wasted a bunch of time and energy and set yourself back on whatever you decide to do next in your career.
You learned a lot. Hopefully you learned a lot with a lot of failures along the way. But yes, it is definitely a long-term it's a long-term business, and that's why we talk so much about a lot of the things that we talk about on the Buzz, with building relationships with customers, retention strategies, doing the right thing, making sure coverages are proper. So when it comes claim time, the customer's happy. And so yes, it is 100% a long-term ball game when you are getting into the insurance and financial services industry.
Yep. Period. Right.
Period.
And you stick with it, and you do a good job, and you'll be infinitely wealthy for the rest of your life, right? So we got to do a better job of telling people that story and helping them understand that. Now, some people aren't going to be willing to go down this path, and that's okay. That's what we were talking about, self-selecting out. Like, fine, they self-select out. Like, let's let them do that, right? Now, I can tell this story via video and a series of videos and testimonials, and have people like you share your story about how, this has created a lifestyle for you and the journey you went through, some of the hard times and then some of the good times that went along with that, right? Because I do want to be transparent in this. Like, it's like when you're working with a customer, you don't just sell them the moon like, oh, we're the best insurance company ever and we're going to have your back no matter what. I mean, you want to educate them on the pros and cons of the decisions that are being made in that buying decision, right? And they're going to respect you for it. Ultimately. Otherwise, you're going to kind of think you're full of it, right?
It's like the quote we just heard from Tony Robbins this weekend. We just were part of a Tony Robbins event, and he said a quote that stood out to me. He's like, the journey to the destination is never going to be perfect, but it will be worth it. Yeah. And that relates really well to, I think, every journey that all of us go on and whatever we are pursuing. But the insurance industry, you're going to have lots of ups and downs along the way, lots of learning. Like no one is just good at sales. No one is just good at insurance. No one is just a good business owner. Like this all comes from development and growth and learning lessons along the way and developing the skill sets that it takes to be successful. And so, but again, I think it's the most noble profession in the world with upside financial potential, that whatever you want to accomplish, however much money you want to make, however many people you want to help, I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about. The bigger impact you have, the more financially successful you're going to be.
And I think I love having opportunities like this to really gain more self-awareness with yourself of, okay, what are my skill sets? And then what are my blind spots? What are the things that I need to pay attention to that could be future pain points, future hurdles that I'm going to have to come up on? So I love that you are bringing this, especially to us, of, here's the things to pay attention to. Here's where you would really excel. Because if you know those ahead of time, you can go ahead and start building a map and a plan around that and going, okay, this is how I'm going to self-sabotage. These are my patterns. This is my belief system. Okay, so when I hit rejection or when I hit frustration, this is what I do. And so having awareness, I think, is always the first step to anything that you want to change. You got to know what you want to change first. So I'm excited to dive into it.
And Fletcher, I just want to ask a quick question because you brought this up and I don't want to skip past this. So you said the video interview. So are you recommending and have you eliminated phone interviews altogether, and the very first interview is just a video interview?
Yeah, Zoom call, right? Whatever, Teams, whatever.
Yep. I love it.
Like, why? I mean, everybody's got it now. And, we all went through COVID together. So,
We know how to work it.
If you can't figure that out, then you can't work for me,
Well, that's true. In this industry, look, video conferencing, video appointments, this is going to be a part of the position. So if they don't show up well on the very first interview, they don't present themselves well, they can't communicate, video is extremely important because that also, a lot of sales are done over the phone, but how they perform over video transitions to the phone. And you're also going to have the in-person element of the insurance industry. So if they don't show up good on video, they're also not going to show up well in person. So I think the video component on the very first interview is an absolute must and non-negotiable moving forward for any business owner.
Yeah. That's a little easy hack, right?
Yep.
So I guess I got derailed here a little bit, but okay. So they apply. We decide they look interesting. We bring them to a video interview. I kind of went through a little bit of what I might do on our first interview with somebody. Get excited about these things, and again, I'm setting the stage. I'm selling without selling. I'm sharing the pros, the cons, the vision, like why you might be interested in this, what to expect career-wise, and then gaining the agreement. Like, hey, I want to see you. I want to meet you in person. And, do you want to move forward? Yes, I want to move forward. They say, hopefully. And if they say no, that's fine. That's great. It's a good answer. Like, I always go for a yes or a no, nothing in between, right? That's an old sales manager trick, right? So then I say, hey, great. So I have these assessments for you to complete. They're going to take X amount of time. Now, I gave you guys like the hour-long one, and I gave you like the 10-minute one, right? Take your pick. Everybody's going to have their own flavor. I'm going to give you the hour and a half one, right? Personally, if you're going to come work for me. Hey, when can you get those done? It's an open-ended question. I'm not setting a deadline for them. You're, Michael, Courtney, you're going to be like, in the next couple of days. Great. Awesome. It's just mental note. Now they've made a social contract with me to complete that done. I don't even write it down. I don't even really care what they say. And they do it, and then they will complete it in a relatively short period of time with a longer, more aggressive set of assessments. You might have a 80% completion rate now, but that's really because those other 20%, they said yes because they were afraid to say no, and they just really are not. Like, it wasn't going to be for them anyway, so no big deal, right?
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you just real fast because I love that question. When can you get this done? Because it's going to show you their sense of urgency on projects.
Yeah,
that's huge because specifically in the sales role, your sense of urgency better be high or you are going to fail.
Yeah.
Period. That's a really, really great question. Thank you for sharing that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Or like, I'm like a zero inbox guy, right? Like I have to like have everything done by the end of the day, or at minimum, I got to have it on my action list for tomorrow, right? I don't do well with lingering projects.
I was on a training the other day, like a webinar, and I rarely ever show my screen, but I showed my screen, and I only had like 3 emails, and one of the agents is like, "Look at this guy. He's only got 3 emails that are not responded to." And it's like, it's because I'm a zero inbox guy too. Like I just like to get my stuff done. Like high sense of urgency. Let's do this.
He has your test results. He knows exactly what your inbox. He knows what both of our inboxes look like.
Yeah.
We're about to get to this. I'm very interested to be like, you're hireable. Oh, better watch for this.
I'm sweating. I haven't even. I'm like, okay, here we go.
This is gonna be fun. So we asked you to complete the assessments. You two completed the assessments. You followed through. Not only you did that, you did some bonus assessments. And then, so we're going to take a look at them. After that, assuming, we liked what we saw there, we liked what we felt in the initial interview, we liked your resume, then we'd invite you in for an in-person interview. And we probably won't have time to talk about that, but there's a whole other set of strategies on what you do once you have that in-person interview. And then last couple of steps would be references. I'm actually going to follow through with my threat and actually speak to those past bosses. And then I want to do a working interview. And I think a working interview in this insurance environment is great. Like it's just a shadow, probably in this case, when you're talking about producers but when you're talking about support staff, you can actually give them a few tasks, like bring them in the office, show them how to do something, give them a task, like see how they do it and see how they behave and see how they interact. And then take the person out to lunch on your working interview, get to know them a little bit, better at a personal level. Let them get to know you guys too, right? If they don't like you, they might be amazing, very talented, but if they don't like working at your place because of whatever reason, they're going to leave you, and that's a waste of both your guys' time. So, I want to try to, show them what it's going to like to be like to live together before we move in with each other, right? And try the work and see the work happen, right? So that's the process I want to follow in total. I either want to do those assessments at the point of application or right after that first video screen. If I'm doing producers, I'm probably going to do it after the first video screen because I'm going to have a higher compliance rate. And then other roles, I can get away with doing it at the point of application. So, okay, so that's big picture process. Any questions there before we jump into assessments?
I love it. And I just want to reiterate, I love the working interview. And for salespeople, like one thing we used to always do, and we do this with our sales team now, anytime we hire somebody brand new, I'll actually bring them in. I'll train them. I'll take like 10 minutes to train them on just a mini part of the conversation, typically like an elevator pitch into the rapport building. And then I give them a list of like 100 names and I'm like, hey, start making some dials. Let's just see how you perform, what you like, what you don't like, how coachable you are, how fast of a learner you are. Like I'm looking at those. And then I think going out for lunch is actually absolutely critical if you're going to be hiring somebody for in person, because you're working around, they're part of your culture, they're part of your team. If you don't like being around them for an hour at lunch, you're definitely not going to enjoy being around them 8 to however many hours a day. So I love that tip.
I do too.
Your gut can tell you no about a hire, but it cannot tell you yes, by the way. That's why we bring in references, structured interviews, all these other techniques we're talking about is like, because sometimes we fall in love with people, we see them and we meet them, and the first thing, we're both A's fans, and like, all of a sudden we're talking about Mark McGuire and like all these cool things, and then, we're like, you're hired. But I forgot to even like figure out if you're even good at sales. Right?
I like you. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, right?
That's serious, because salespeople are the easiest people to sell to, because we're typically optimistic, we're typically positive, we're like, we like you, you're gonna be great, let's do this, and then 3 months later you're like, shit, I made a terrible hire.
We need to break up.
We need to break up, and then it takes 3 months to break up, and it's longer than it should, because it's hard to break up with people, even if no matter what the condition is, they got to be really bad to break up with them quickly.
We've all held on to an ex for way too long.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you guys want to look at some assessments? I'm assuming I can share my screen with this guy here. Yeah, okay. I think. Okay, let me see here. Well, let's see. Can I do the entire screen maybe?
I'm pumped. I am pumped to find out what you learn about us. Here
Can you see this? This looks like you, Michael. Wow. Okay,
we're going to start with Michael. Good.
Yeah.
Start with him, Deb.
Courtney and I probably aren't going to be friends by the end of this conversation. But
shit.
You guys ready to get real and vulnerable, and you can or you can push back. Again, this is going to be an interesting conversation. I promised you, right? Okay. So let's start with the easy one. Look, you two. I mean, you guys are married, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what I heard or I see. So you guys are, obviously have very, very similar personalities. Now, my father always taught me, opposites attract. Now, I don't know that that's, absolutely you have to be opposites to be, a couple with somebody, but I think it is interesting the conflicts that happen with opposites. So my wife is an opposite of me. So we do have conflicts. But, I think if I also was married to myself from a personality perspective, I'd also have a lot of conflicts with that person, right? But you guys are pretty interesting. So on a high level, let's look at these ones here. Let's go with the friendly stuff here. So on the DIS side, Michael, you're high D. So you're a driver, kind of get things done. That explains your zero inbox. Like, you just like results. You like things done. You like to be efficient. It doesn't mean that you're super organized necessarily. You're probably organized out of necessity from an efficiency perspective, but not necessarily because you love to color code everything that you do, right? Does that sound about right so far?
Get shit done, baby. Let's go.
Now you're leaning towards this influencer type. I'm assuming you come from sales management, leadership. So that's a very typical, you're high D, leaning towards what we call an influencer. So you have both attributes going on, but the more dominant one is the dominance or the D part of your personality. Does that make sense?
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, we're all snowflakes here and we're all different levels. So, you have some level of conscientiousness and steadiness, personality types. So that'd be like your patience and empath stuff. But the steadiness stuff is definitely the lowest on your scale there. Now, whereas Courtney, on the other hand, again, very similar to you two, but she is like, Courtney, you are an extreme I.
Yep.
So you must be a lot of fun to hang out with.
She's a blast.
Yes, I will claim that.
Yeah.
She's a queen of fun, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you make friends with everybody you meet, probably anywhere you go, in every social setting. Where like, me and Michael probably like, we like to be social, but we're kind of might be a little more like pick and choosy. So Michael, you and I'm a high D, leaning towards an I. Courtney, you're high I, leaning towards a D. Again, very stereotypical like sales type personalities, sales leadership. I would guess, I don't know, I'm just going to go on a limb, Courtney was a better salesperson than you, Michael.
What would you say?
Different. We're different salespeople.
Who put up the best numbers?
That'd be me.
You.
Yeah, that'd be me.
All right.
Who gets what they want more regularly? Me.
Definitely you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I'm very persuasive.
Yeah. So again, well, you say it's both said something, different styles, right? Mm-hmm. So again, you're going to have a slightly different flavors in how you do that. I would imagine, Courtney, you're selling probably more heavily through relationships, and Michael, you might be a little more process oriented, if not very process oriented in your approach, right?
Wow. Okay. Yes, you're nailing this.
Yeah. So again, you guys are a perfect case study. Actually, neither system is probably wrong. Again, you both come from successful sales backgrounds, from what I understand, and ultimately leadership backgrounds. So there's not a perfectly right or wrong answer here, but that does probably influence or change the style in which you both approach that, right? Yep. And again, a lot of similarities in your personalities, both sharing the D and the I attributes that are rather intense in both of you. Courtney being very intense on the influencer side of things, right?
Yeah. This makes a lot of sense. And this is not the first time we've taken personality tests, but that's why in every sales conversation that I do, I really try to heavily focus on rapport and the discovery conversation, because if I don't do that, I will skip to the solution really quickly, which probably is because I'm a D high. And so that's one thing I really focus on, is building relationships, building that trust in the beginning of a conversation, because I know if I'm not focused on that within the process, this is funny, then it's not going to happen. Yeah. And so that's why I really, really emphasize that portion of the conversation, to find the problem, to build the trust, and then we're going to solve it.
Yeah. And you guys, right off the bat, before we got started here, you started asking me about my weekend, and we were chatting about, what I did, and you guys were building rapport with me, and I was kind of like urgently like going like, when are we just going to cut to the chase here, right? I had a nice time telling you about my weekend, but that was great. But yeah, I'm like you, right, Michael? I'm just like, okay, let's just cut to the chase. Let's have the conversation. Let's do it, right? And I probably, I also have to work on my rapport building and, curiosity and my discovery questions, right? Yeah. And that goes a long ways to breaking the ice and taking the guard down of the person that you're talking to, and not in a, any kind of negative way, but, to be able to have a productive, meaningful, conversation, right?
So Fletcher, this has nothing to do with these tests. It's more out of curiosity, because when I look at 15 years ago, I very much was like to the point, whereas now, and I don't know if it's because I've learned that that's what equates to success or what, but I've developed a very curious mindset of every person I'm talking to. I'm very curious to get to know them more, and the relatability and what their problem is. And so I wonder if, and maybe you can answer this question, if I've learned that that's just, because that's the type of person I am now, I would say. Would you say that? Like, I'm very much like a very good listener, asking questions. I don't know. What's your take on this?
Yeah. So is your question, do they change?
Yeah. Like, do you change throughout time because of learned skill sets, experiences, things of that nature?
Yeah, I think you can change over time. I think it's hard to change some of these things, So I think some of it might be compensating. Now, you on the steadiness side of things, actually, you just nailed it there. So we actually break your scores down into some sub scores here, right?
Okay.
And listening, you scored quite high. So you expressed an interest or desire to listen, to want to hear what other people have to say. That's like how you score this way. You have to say, I like to hear it, right? I want to hear what the other person says, right?
I love it.
So you've expressed that, and so it can change. I say it's very difficult. Look, I've always been this way since I was a little kid, and I think it's funny. Do you guys have kids?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, if you ever decide to have kids, I'm big personality buff. I've been taking these types of assessments since I was 7 years old. Been the chief guinea pig on these things, I guess. But now I have 2 young girls, and it's really funny. Like, I think I have a D and an I, but I'm still, they're really young. They're like almost 4 and 20 months, right? But I'm like placing bets right now on their personality to see how they develop over time. But if you ask anybody who's have older kids, and more often than not, they'll be like, yeah, their personalities are basically identical, like from they were a little baby to now they're 26 or something, right? We don't typically change a lot. It is there is science that says this is part of your DNA, but can we make incremental influences or adjustments, and does it change over time? Yes, it does, and through socialization, other behaviors, or intentional effort, right? But I'll tell you, change is hard because it is so ingrained in your DNA.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our personality is what we come back home to. And I think we can redecorate and we can adjust and we can improve. But I do think that there is almost a base home of what feels most comfortable to us, because it is what we are born with. And we can express in different ways and in different situations. But that's how I would almost interpret it, is like, this is my home. This is like my emotional home, my personality home.
Yeah, it's a great way to characterize it. Okay. So that's personality. Any other questions on that piece? I mean, there's lots we probably could cover, but anything else you want to talk about here?
Let's break down the DISC. What are those for? Because we broke down dominance, influence, S, and the C.
Yeah. So anybody, taking a DISC assessment, this is our proprietary version. We call it the Work Styles Discovered Assessment. But D is the dominance personality type. You've got the influencer, conscientious, and steadiness. So dominance, kind of like go-getter, do things like get to the point, results, efficiency. Influencers, kind of relationships and sort of being center stage and friendly, gregarious, outgoing. Your quintessential kind of salesperson personality. And then you have your conscientious types. These are the people who are like diligent, process-oriented, structured, detail-oriented. You see this in like engineers and anybody sort of in a technical role, accountants, anybody who's kind of loves the details and what they do, right? By the way, D's and C's are both what I would call results-oriented, so that's how we have this broken down right here. They just go about it differently, right? Us D's, we like to get things done. We're all about efficiency. The details don't always matter that much to us. It doesn't mean that we're not organized. Like, Michael, you got a 0 inbox, but you and I do that out of sort of this necessity to move forward and to not like have to worry about it and to dwell on the details. Or at least that's why I do it, right? Maybe that resembles you. Where a C would like, not only would they have a 0 inbox, but they would have it all like color coordinated and organized like perfectly. Like they would spend a lot of time making sure that every email was categorized exactly the way it was supposed to be. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank God for technology. You can just like search your inbox, right?
Yep.
And then S's are steadiness. So these are your empaths. They're also relationship oriented like the influencers. So they're caring, patient, empathetic, nurturing in their nature. Like C's, they tend to be more introverted. So D's and I's are very extroverted. And like I's, yeah, they're very relationship oriented, but unlike I's, because of this more introverted side of their way, they'd much rather be in a supporting role than on stage, for example. Like, Courtney, you probably have no problem standing on stage and giving a big inspirational speech that everybody's laughing and crying and having a great time at. And S would, never want to do that. They'd be scared, to death without training. And, sometimes some S's get there, right? But so they'd be definitely more the one to be listening in the conversation, asking all the questions, letting Courtney do all the talking, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So that's kind of the way to kind of think about this wheel. Maybe the last thing to think about is there's all different types of intensities and different, styles and personalities. So, we speak about these things in a lot of generalities. It's, I want to be careful to not overinterpret categorical statements like, Michael, you're a D. Well, we took a look. You also have some S stuff going on where you do seem to have a general interest in listening. Maybe not as patient as, your typical S, but there's some, yeah, exactly. Right. There's an area to improve or to be more aware of when you feel impatient. Right. So, there's just so many different factors here, but I think it is a good starting point. And then ultimately this is great language, right? Like I could stick this on my Zoom or, my nameplate on my desk and say, I'm a DI, right? Well, when somebody walks up or sees me in a Zoom room, or as an organization, we now all have this same language that we can speak about our personalities, then we begin to just better understand ourselves and the other people, and we can hopefully use that awareness to stop and pause and say, you know what, I'm going to go walk into the controller's office here, and I'm going to go lay this project on their plate, and I realize I haven't really thought through or haven't given enough instruction. Maybe I should pause and take my time and, lay this out a little more clearly versus just laying a pile of, chaos on their desk, right? Mm-hmm. Or vice versa. When that controller comes to speak to one of you, they might want to say, you know what, I better just give them like the three most important things I need to say and not explain all the detail to them. Does that make sense?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then when you're dealing with the world around you, this is something my father taught me and I think is, great, is every person you meet, put them in a box. Now, and I'm not trying to do this in any sort of, derogatory way, right? But, like when you meet somebody on the street, be like, which one are they? A D, I, S, or C? When you meet a customer, a prospect, which one are they? Yep. Make a little note for yourself. And that little mental exercise in itself, it means like, A, you're trying to be aware of other people's personalities, the clues that they're giving you when you interact with them. And then once you get really good at that, you're probably going to be pretty spot on. You might be like 80% accurate, right? Nail it that often. And now as a salesperson or as a leader or as a husband or wife or kid or son or daughter, you can maybe work to be better at how you interact with the other people in your world. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
So it gives us a common set of language and understanding of personality. And that's, I think, the one of the big end games. And that's emotional intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. The more I understand about myself, the more I understand about other people. And then I can now begin to use that to have more productive relationships. All right. Covered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm biting my lip because I'm like, oh God, are we moving on?
What's next?
Are we moving on to the
I'm going to try to run out of time before we get to that. But so I want to cover one big piece. So I had you guys do a personality assessment, two slightly different versions from the same family. The results were basically the same. So we don't need to spend a lot of time looking at that on this report. I will send it to you, but when you guys get your report, you'll see like on here, there's a personality thing that's similar, right, to the DISC profile. It's presented a little differently. There were more questions used in this. You guys will see there are variances, there are a little bit of differences, but also, I don't know, pretty similar here, right?
Yep.
Actually, high listening, high D qualities, moderately high I stuff for Michael. And so you guys both were pretty spot on in that sense. So I want to talk about ability. So personality is your inclination towards certain types of behaviors. If you're highly inclined towards being very social and outgoing and extroverted and getting things done, results oriented, those all lend themselves really nicely to being in a sales career or a leadership career of some sort, right? Because those behaviors are needed every day, all day. You can't be afraid to pick up the phone, make a cold call. You can't be afraid to make a friend on the elevator. You have to push those relationships forward to a conclusion, to a close, right? Type thing. So if you don't like doing those things, then being a salesperson is probably going to be very difficult. Now, there are some like C's and S's in sales, but very difficult for those people, and those people have a different path to becoming very successful at sales than, say, Courtney and Michael. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
So if I'm going to hire a salesperson, let's say a young kid, I'm going to want to lean towards hiring a D or I or DIs or IDs, that type of a personality, because I just know that they have more natural inclination towards the behaviors that are going to be required to be successful there. Okay, with all that said, you still need some skill. I think, Michael, you talked about it before. You sales training, just because you like getting things done and you like building relationships and being influential doesn't automatically mean you'll be good at sales, right?
There are certain personality traits, as you're saying, that are going to help set one up for success maybe more, but to be the best, to be great, you got to do some work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you ultimately got to have both at some point, right? You can have some early success off your personality, but if you don't develop yourself as a salesperson or a leader or whatever it is that you do in your career as an engineer, it doesn't matter, right? You could be highly conscientious and detail-oriented and very smart, and you could still be a terrible engineer because you haven't invested time to master your craft, right?
Amen.
Yep.
So we have, on the sales side, we have a sales ability test. We do this just straight sales portion. This is like a short 10-minute sales test. And then this is the more advanced version that covers people skills. So when I say people skills now, I'm going away from Courtney's natural inclination to being great with people and gregarious and friendly and relationship oriented, now to your actual understanding of how other people think, feel, and operate, and your application of that. And so we do that by measuring some sub-facets we call understanding human nature, knowing how to deal with people. And these are going to be very developed skills. And you're both scored very, very well on this. So we can pop through on both. You both were like almost identical on your what we call our aptitude assessment or ability assessment. You have slight differences in your scores, so they're almost not meaningful that your scores are so close. So go figure, you guys are in the business that you're in. You've not only have you been successful in sales and leadership careers, but now you're all teaching and influencing and sharing those ideas with other people because you're at a very high level of skill set. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we got the people stuff here. These are all important attributes, and then we get into the sales side of things. So this is kind of a general sales assessment. And we can tear this out and just give this to people. I like to give this portion to entry-level salespeople just to see, do they naturally can figure out the right answers? Or have they picked up some skill through some life experiences, working at Best Buy where there's some light sales or something, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into some more advanced sales techniques. And again, you guys just score great across the board. I mean, you've obviously all spent a lot of time practicing and studying these best practices, right?
Lots of calls, lots of conversations.
Yeah. So look, if both of you guys showed up on my doorstep saying, "Hey, I want to come and sell for you today," I would hire you guys in a heartbeat.
Let's go. All right, baby.
Also, so logic is like a mini IQ test. So it's like a cognitive ability. Now I tend to, don't take this the wrong way, guys, but salespeople don't always tend to score all that well. That's why we go into sales, I guess. That's my joke. We're not the smartest people in the world. No. No, you guys both score well. An engineer, I'd probably expect to score higher. But I'd probably get concerned when salespeople score really low because, again, we don't think of salespeople necessarily as being the brightest and smartest ever. But when they are not smart, it is also kind of a problem too. Does that make sense? Their ability to learn, understand complex subjects. I mean, you're talking about insurance. I mean, it's not rocket science, but there are a lot of nuances to the products and the services and the why and like which one should you use? What's the right one for the client? What's the client's end game and what they're trying to do with their life, right? You want to be able to recommend and understand the wide variety of products that are out there for me to protect my assets and my loved ones in case of tragedy, right?
Yep.
So having a little bit of smarts probably helps quite a bit. Look, if they score off the chart, that's great. Somewhere kind of in this medium high range, like both of you score, that's great. It's when they get to like the really low ranges, then, cognitive ability, lack of cognitive ability could be a big challenge. It doesn't mean
the likelihood that they even pass their insurance test is pretty low at that point in time, probably.
So Fletcher, are you telling us that we are not going to birth a rocket scientist? That's what you're saying. You're like, might want to push them towards sales.
Yeah. Well, and genetically, you're probably predisposed to not birthing a rocket science. But you know what? I mean, genetics, you never know, man.
Okay. Love it. I love that.
I'm not a geneticist, so I cannot say for certain, but I do think there is some.
We're saying it's leaning towards we might want to work on the art of persuasion. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, which you obviously both have mastered, and here we are, right?
Yeah. Okay. Love it.
Okay. So this is really important. So it's two sides of the coin. Is the person naturally inclined towards the behaviors that are going to make them successful, or are they not? If they're not, I mean, I think personality is a better predictor of failure than it is of success in some ways. So just don't do a job where you're fighting an uphill battle, basically. Don't put yourself in a job unless you're just so passionate about it that you're going to fight through your natural disorientation towards those behaviors. Fine. If you want to do that, some people have been wildly successful doing that, but very rare, right? The other side of the coin is aptitude or competency. These are a lot of core competencies with some specific competencies around sales. So general competencies are people skills and cognitive abilities. These apply to anybody and everybody in any role, in any job, period. Now, it's particularly important that salespeople are good with people. And then we added in here a sales component. And again, this is measuring some levels of competencies. If I were to hire an engineer, I'd be probably looking at people skills, cognitive skills, but I might also then throw in some engineering calculations to figure out whether they know how to do the math right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So competency is a wide varying topics. But if I'm hiring somebody, I want to know the answer to both those questions as thoroughly as I possibly can before I make a decision, right? So lastly, I want to look at attitude and integrity. Now, I say last but not least is, and this is very common with salespeople. Now, I actually hired a salesperson who scored like 100 on blame and like 100 on dishonesty. And he was President's Club first year. I had to threaten to fire the guy like 3 times in the first year of working with me. I actually really liked this person. And we would go socialize together, and he was a lot of fun to hang out with. He was kind of a nightmare to manage, but boy, that guy could sell, right?
Fletcher, are you talking about me right now?
Might be. So we have some concerns there, but I can tell you. So if I'm going to hire a producer or a salesperson who's like that, be ready to go on a roller coaster with them, right? I'm not saying don't do it, but I'd be self-aware or be aware of that. And, we want to work on that. Now, if I'm hiring any other role, I'm probably going to just I don't need a problematic client success person, right? I just don't need to deal with that for an admin or a controller or an engineer even. So engineers and salespeople are the two most notorious, what we call talented terrors. So they're very, very competent. Their personality is spot on. They're often very, very intelligent, but they can have lots of problematic behaviors. And so you want to make a decision on whether or not you want to invite those people into your organization, because they come with some big upside, but they also come with some big downsides too. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those people turn into entrepreneurs, by the way.
Hey, there we go.
Okay.
I love this. This has been great, Fletcher. This is fantastic.
Oh, let's see if I'll stop sharing screen because we're going to run out of time here. But
no, you're
we
good.
We covered a lot. And I'm going to send you guys your test results, and if you guys want to debrief afterwards too, I'm happy to do so. The
one thing I heard today is we are doing the thing that we were born to do, baby.
Oh my God. Did you call that a talented terror?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. So I don't know, Mike. Is she a little bit terroristic?
Buckle up, baby. We are going for a ride.
Hey, yeah. when you get two high performers, two Enneagram 3s in the same household, things are just gonna happen. All right, both.
Okay, I love that you were saying this, because how we're described in our organization, Michael is like a steady Eddie. Like he's like what's the big ships, like a cargo ship that just moves and they're just going. They're like, I will do whatever it takes.
So you're not going to stop it either.
Yeah, no. They're not stopping. I'm called the jet ski. I'm the jet ski. I'm the girl like, I have an idea. We're going to do this. We're going to go over here. I'm going to circle. You just emphasized that. You gave me some more okay, I'm doing the thing that I was meant to do.
Yeah.
As are you.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We might need to throttle you back sometimes, but
Well, the caffeine is always
yeah, exactly.
Hold the caffeine back, take her down a notch.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do too.
I love it. That's why everyone loves
Harness
you. So,
it.
Fletcher, I know we're going to run out of time, so I want to be respectful of your time. If somebody wanted to work with you, get to know you more, learn more about your company, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, a couple of ways. I'm blessed with a very unique name. Thanks, Mom. But Fletcher Wimbush, just Google me. I'll come up on whatever the top 10 pages, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, very easy to find. If you're interested in automating your talent sourcing and talent valuation stuff, discovered.ai. You can find us there and check that out. I'm always happy to have a one-on-one conversation with anybody who's interested in supercharging their hiring process. So don't be shy. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a note. Say, hey, you saw me on this podcast. Would you mind spending a few minutes with me? And so those are the best two places. And then I'm going to leave you and your audience with our fact-driven hiring system. It's an 8-hour e-learning course. It's going to break down the 40 most important things you can do in the hiring process from A to Z, from finding to onboarding those folks. And so you can share that with your audience for free using the Hire Better code, coupon code. I'm going to share with you guys the DISC tool that you can use with your clients, your friends, your kids. I do this actually at the end of a night of socializing with friends. I always sit them down and we all take the test together. It's kind of fun after a few drinks, So I'm going to leave that there with you all. And then I'm going to also leave you guys with our Hiring Expert GPT, which will walk you through the fact-driven hiring system now in AI. So that's free tool for ChatGPT you can pick up and use. So take advantage of all those things. And if you have any questions, I'm always here for you.
Fletcher, you're the man.
That is amazing.
Yes,
okay, so
thank you so much.
Every resource that Fletcher has mentioned will be down below in the show notes and the caption, so you can grab all of those. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, Fletcher, this is awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. This was very eye-opening. I'm glad we, I want to say, passed the test. All right, we came out as hireable. I will take it. We're doing what we're supposed to do. So Fletcher and all of you that are tuning in today, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. We appreciate you as a community, your support. And as always, time and attention are by far our most important assets. Go out and make it great, my friends. Fletcher, thanks again, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.